Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with another audio interview for the Unsung Heroes. It's a special edition of the Unsung Heroes this week. The fourth annual Yamaha PulpMX LCQ Challenge took place Friday afternoon in Denver, and today I get the chance to talk to the winner of the event. He's been a privateer in the 450 class for several years now. He won the race on Friday. Nobody expected 2-2 scores from anyone, but he got the job done. We're still waiting to figure out how much of the purse he received, but it's been a turnaround year for him. 17th in the 450 main event on Saturday night, his 12th main event of the season, and I believe the 54th of his career. Joining me today for this special edition interview, rider, team owner, social media guy. He's all over the place and he wears a lot of hats and he does them well. From KMR champion Tool Storage KTM, Kevin Moranz. What's up, dude? Congratulations on the win.
Thank you, dude. That was one heck of an intro. That is awesome.
Well, thanks, and we'll get right into it. Obviously, Friday, this was your third year, I believe, out of four competing in the LCQ Challenge race, and you've been up
Correct.
front before. You've mixed it up in that race, but obviously, this two-moto format, you really took advantage of things. So my first question, take me through your day, how those motos went, and then the second part of it would be, of course, the start of Moto 2 is what everybody's been talking about. So walk me through that and a little bit of how you got to stand on the top step and be the fourth different guy to win the race in 4 years.
Yeah, man, it's been pretty sweet. So, I mean, also, I didn't even know that. So, I've in the intro, or whatever, 54-minute events. That's pretty sweet. Halfway to 100, about. But anyway, yeah, I mean, it was a pretty normal day. Obviously, the Fridays we just get everything set up, get the bike all ready to go. But having a race that day, we went through tech, got a different transponder than what we were going to use for the race the next day. And then, yeah, went out there for qualifying. We only had one practice, so usually you get free practice, two qualifying sessions, and then you go racing. There we had literally 1 8-minute session to figure out the track, and it was pretty cool because I ended up going, I think, a half second faster than anybody else on the course. So popped up to P1 in qualifying, which is good, so felt good going into the motos. Didn't have a great gate pick in the first one, obviously, because I had been in a majority of the main events this year. So honestly, I barely squeaked into this race, which was nice. It was about perfect. And then got out to an early top five start, made a couple quick moves, and then was just following Chiz. And Chiz was hitting a little bit bigger line in one of the rhythms that I hit, on race day on Saturday, but I wasn't hitting it on Friday. And so he kind of kept me at bay and ended up second the first one, which wasn't too bad. I was kind of happy with that, all things considered, but I knew that the next race was going to be the gnarliest one. So the second moto happened to start nearly dead last with only Chiz behind me. I knew it was going to be tricky, and I knew it because he was going to be trying to make moves quickly as well. And I even kind of told him that because I know he was racing fully for Chiz, and I even told him, I was like, dude, I'm not hitting that triple over there yet. I'll hit it tomorrow, but I'm not hitting it yet. So watch out for me because I knew Chiz was going to keep hitting it. And I was like, hey, if you're coming up on me, just give me a rev. Like, just don't take me out. But, like, if you got more speed than me, go win this thing kind of thing. And then when they were lining us up, or no, right before they started lining us up for the second moto, they said, hey, little change up, normal staggered start, you have to follow the person in front of you, and you cannot pass until you pass the tough block, which is where the first person pretty much starts. They said this time, as soon as the green flag waves, it's fair game. You can do whatever you want as long as you still go in between the berm and the tough block. And so I took advantage of that more than others, clearly, which even in the video you see on Verb Moto, there's like Welton did it. There's a couple other guys in front of me that went left as well. I just took advantage of it a little bit quicker, and it ended up working out in my favor. So taking that rule and using it to its full potential, a lot of people didn't understand because they weren't down there for when they stated that to all of us racers. So yeah, it was pretty wild, to be honest.
Yeah, great move by you. I remember, I think Kellen or JB1 on the broadcast was pointing out, they were like, Moranz is pointing his bike a little bit to the left. Interesting to see what happens here. And then, of course, you end up getting up front. Like I said, last year, 210 scores, I think, were the ones that won it. And then this year, realistically, everybody on the podium would have either tied or beat that because you went
Yes.
2-2, Marsh went 7-1. Hardy Munoz 5.5 on a 250 was very impressive.
Yeah, that's
But
solid. And then, but also like Welton did the same thing as me, but I am the only one that's been catching flack for it because I won.
well, speaking of winning, for you guys, the 450 privateers, and even the guys in the 250 class, usually the only races you get to win involved with Supercross are LCQs. And I'm sure those are
Yes.
confidence boosters, but to win a race at this level and to get the payday, like I've said, we don't know for sure how much money you're getting, but to win a race like this with all the top privateer guys and to get that monetary donation, so to speak, I know you were talking on the podium about possibly investing in a semi hauler. Talk to me a little bit about that and just how it feels confidence wise to be able to stand up at the top of the podium and to feel like, yeah, man, I did it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool because especially with that situation, you know, it like so Chiz was racing fully for Jerry. Marshall Welton, who ended up second, told Steve like, "Hey, I'll do 10% of my winnings to Jerry." And then so the morning of the race, so before we raced, I told Steve, I was like, "Hey, I'll match it too. Like if Marshall's going to step up and do that, whatever I make, I'll give 10% to Jerry as well." So it's kind of cool that I ended up going one, and then Marshall, who's also donating 10%, ended up second. So 1-2. Obviously, we all wanted Chiz to do better, but he just had a little unfortunate tangle with another rider. But it's huge for me and my program. Obviously, I do a lot of crowdfunding and getting the fans involved, which is huge. So it's going to help me kind of make some of my own decisions and kind of reinvest back into the program, take care of my crew a little bit. But yeah, the biggest thing is we are potentially looking to sell the rig that we are currently in and move to a semi. There's a lot of costs that come in with that. There's still a lot of conversations that need to happen to even see if that's realistic. But that is kind of on our radar right now because we want to keep growing. And, obviously you move into a semi, you have potential for larger partnerships. You can take more display stuff with you. We're a little bit restricted in the current rig that we're in. But regardless, just continuously trying to grow the program and reinvest back into it is kind of the game plan.
That kind of leads into my next question. I was going to talk about growing the program. Last year, you'd spent time with TPJ and Next Level and some of these other smaller programs, but you really decided to build your own thing from the ground up with the help of sponsors like Champion Tool Storage and like Jibo and all these other guys who've been helping you out. And then, of course, all of your fan support. The Moranz Mafia, I know, has been huge for your platform for years. So talk a little bit. Obviously, you had some growing pains last year. There was only a couple main events. I know you got hurt at one point in time last year, so it wasn't the best first year for your effort, but then this year, immediately when the season started, you were already putting it in main events and fighting towards those points and towards the top 20 and stuff like that. But talk a little bit about how and why you kind of decided to build your own effort, and then the growth you've watched in year two of it.
Yeah, the biggest reason for wanting to do my own thing was, I've kind of done that my whole life. Never really had a normal job. I've always, when I was in middle school and high school, I was mowing lawns and doing stuff on my own, kind of being my own boss and own entrepreneur in a sense. And then when getting into racing, obviously I wanted it to be all I do. I don't want to have to like work a job and do racing. Like I kind of wanted to jump full force into the racing side of things. So, when I was younger, going through Loretta's and stuff like that, like I more or less come from, middle class, normal family. Like mom and dad don't own businesses. They have normal-ish jobs. And so we didn't really have the funding to go do a whole lot of crazy things. We only ever did Loretta's. So we never did we never went to Mammoth. I've never even been to Minneo's, like none of those. Like we went to public school. So a lot of guys in our industry now are homeschooled and at training facilities since they were 8 years old kind of deal. So I went the normal route, and we didn't have quite the funding to make everything happen. Even if I want to go to Loretta's, we didn't have the funding to make that happen because that's such an expensive weekend or week. So it started with me, going door to door to businesses in Topeka, which is in Kansas where I'm from, kind of figuring out, trying to get sponsorship, trying to get just little, a couple $100 here, a couple $100 there to put towards fuel and other expenses. And then year after year, it just kind of grew into, learning more, understanding what sponsors find valuable, whether it's experiences or, deliverables and stuff like that to get more people on board. And it just kind of kept growing and growing. And then when I decided to go pro, my parents were like, hey, like, we're trying to help your brother go through college. Obviously, I've always kind of grown up in a family that lived paycheck to paycheck. They're doing a little bit better now, but like that's what our life was growing up, because we didn't really have a whole lot of money. So I had to get creative if I wanted to go racing. So as soon as I went pro, my parents were like, you're doing good. We love you. We support you. We're here for you. But obviously we can't do this financially for you. So if you want to do it, you got to go find your own funding, kind of deal. And so that, I wouldn't trade that for anything, because if that doesn't happen, then, I'd probably just mooch off my parents, and I'm not as driven as I am currently. So had to get creative, go find sponsors, find creative ways to get people to commit and come, join in on the program. And then in 2023, when I was having my really good year, that was when like a majority of everybody on KTM was hurt. So like Webb was down. I think Plessinger was on there at that point. He was down. Barsha was out. Mookie was out. Craig was out. So like all Husky, all gas, all KTM. Everybody was out. I was the top Austrian brand rider currently, and didn't really even get like an opportunity or a call or like, an attaboy to an extent. Like there was no opportunity to move up into a fill-in ride. So at that point, that's when I was in 2023, and I was like, all right, I'm not going to sit here and wait for something to come about and wait for an opportunity. I was like, I'm just going to go start building my own thing, because I've always done that in my past, like starting my own businesses and whatnot as a kid and mowing lawns. Like I've always enjoyed working for myself and building something for myself. So I was like, at that point, I'm not going to wait for a factory ride or wait for a fill-in ride or a smaller opportunity. I just said, hey, I'm going to go start building my own thing and enjoy doing it. So that's kind of honestly where it all started from.
Yeah, you guys have grown a lot as well over the past year or so. And my next question for you is, if the people read and follow the Unsung Heroes every week, they might remember the Daytona article where I talked about Jackson Freeman, your mechanic who's out here 17 years old, and he's going
Yep.
to all the races and living the dream and really getting his feet wet and learning a ton of things from the professional ranks. For you, from a rider's perspective, what has it been like having a young guy like him to work with you and for you, but how's he been able to keep the bike up throughout the year and be an asset to your organization?
Yeah, man, he's been solid. I mean, he's learning a lot. Obviously, being 17, he's got a little bit of maturing to do and stuff like that. But he's been solid. Like he's when he's at the races, he's capable of doing just about anything we need to do. He doesn't have a ton of experience with doing stuff like full-on motor swaps quickly, but he's capable of doing it. He's capable of doing everything. So just getting his reps in, getting the experience of what it is like to be on an actual Supercross racing team, gets a little bit more of a vibe of what really needs to be taken care of on a weekly basis. But it's just been, in my past, I've worked with a couple people that are a little bit more seasoned and aren't as impressionable or aren't as teachable, let's put it that way. And with the privateer program, like that's what I've always explained to the guys that I have on the team now is like, yo, you're going to be asked to do more than just what you think you're there to do. Like if we need help tearing up, setting down, like you're jumping in, you're helping with it. You're doing something that is like, for instance, like Jackson, like if you were there, you're not just there to do bike work. Like you're there to help with whatever we need to help with, because we're a privateer racing team. We are short staffed in a sense. So like if there's something that you guys need to do, that's what you need to jump in and do. And it's been nice having a little bit younger crew around me this year to understand that coming into it. So it's obviously a communication thing and stuff I'm learning as well, is trying to set realistic expectations for everybody. So no, he's been solid to have around. I think he's going to continue to learn, continue to grow, continue to mature. And I think it'll be a good thing.
My next question is more related to your weekend in Denver overall. 17th place, I think it either tied or set your best finish of the year in a dry condition. So
Yep.
congrats on that. So take me through a little bit, Denver. Obviously, you had Friday, and you looked pretty comfortable out on the track with your win in the PulpMX race. But how was things on Saturday, going into it with that much confidence? And take me through that. And now there's only one round left, which is kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah, man, it feels like we just started in California last week, man. So it's been a good change of pace. I mean, especially like just how comfortable I feel so quickly on the tracks has been huge. So like, REP suspension, making that change up for this year, And then obviously the 2025 KTM 450. I'm meshing well with the bike, which is super exciting. But yeah, what was the question again?
Talk about Denver on Saturday
Oh yeah,
night,
yeah, yeah,
your
yeah.
night show, and
Doing
all
the pulp
that through the
race and
day.
the night show. Yes. So I don't know. You can't really hear it in my voice right now, but ever since the mutter we had, and then the next weekend that was super cold, like I have been pretty not like extremely sick to the point where I can't get out of bed, but my breathing and I've had so much mucus in my system and like coughing up nasty green stuff out of my lungs. So it has not gone away since the mutter. So I've had it for almost 4 weeks now. And Colorado being at elevation affected me a little bit more. So I felt all right on Friday, but I don't know other riders as well. But I know for sure I struggle very hard to sleep the night after races. Your heart rate's just so high, your adrenaline's still just there's just so much that just got done, especially when you get done with a main event at 10 p.m. For me, I can fall asleep all right, but I always wake up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, say like 2, 3 a.m., and I cannot, like I'm restless when I go back to sleep. So like Friday, after winning the pulp race, it was obviously an awesome situation, but then went to bed at about 11 p.m., woke up at 2 a.m. to go to the bathroom, and was wide awake from 2 a.m. to about 5 a.m. So like just tossing and turning, trying to force myself to go back to sleep. Just couldn't do it. Finally fell back to sleep around 5 a.m., woke up at like 6:30 to head to the track. So I had like 4.5 hours of sleep Friday night. So I woke up Saturday feeling the effects because I can't breathe as well. Obviously not recovered because I didn't sleep worth a dang. And then the elevation still affecting you too. So my eyes were really heavy on Saturday and like just didn't feel super good. And I knew I already understood the track because I got pulp race. So I didn't really, put in a bunch of effort or a bunch of laps in free practice. I knew quality 1 was so-so. Quality 2 kind of rebounded a little bit, but it's still just a little bit off. And went into the heat race. Was actually super proud of my heat race. I actually fought really well, was really aggressive, banging bars with Nichols. Like we went back and forth 3 or 4 different times, making, like we actually like we're coming into each other and hitting each other and stuff like that. So it was good for me to show a little bit of fight against somebody like that, a factory rider instead of laying over. So that's one thing I've been working on as well is, if you're in that position, it's just as much yours as it is theirs, no matter who it is. So I was really proud of that. Was in 9th or 10th, got myself to 9th after passing or fighting with Nichols a little bit. And then Grant Harlan was right in front of me, got around him. So I was in 8th. And I was like, okay, sweet. Like if Nichols is going to be coming back for me because I had just pretty much blew his doors off on the inside. Didn't hit him too hard, but definitely took his line away. So I figured he'd be coming back after me. So being an 8th, I was like, okay, well, like he can go around me and I don't need to like have him take me out or anything like that. So then I feeling pressure behind me and lay up in a corner because I saw a wheel coming up in front of me, and then all of a sudden it's Craig that goes around me. So I was like, oh my goodness, he must have went down. I was like, I didn't even know that he was behind me. So then I'm sitting in 9th, and then Nichols, I slide in the next corner, and Nichols gets around me. So then I'm 10th, and I have Craig and Nichols in front of me, and then Savachi goes around me, and I'm like, where are all these dudes? Why are all these dudes right here? Like, you should be up front. So then I'm back to, 11th? And I was like, okay, at this point, I got 2 laps left. I'm not going to be able to fight my way around these dudes. I'm already kind of starting to peter out from just not being able to breathe. So I had to save it for the LCQ. So go to the LCQ and get a good start, which is huge. Just ride my own race, which is awesome. And I was just super stoked to honestly get into the main event because of how I was feeling, being drained from the night before or the day before. It wasn't super gnarly, the LCQ race, but it still got your heart rate up extremely high, and being at elevation and not being used to it and being tough to breathe. Like there's just so many factors that played into it, and then poor sleep. So got in through the LCQ, stoked on that. And then on the main event on the line, I was like, just as long as I don't get last kind of thing. And then I stopped myself like before the gate dropped. I was like, Kevin, like, don't be talking like that. Like you have an opportunity that you're good at starts. At least go until you hit a wall. Like if you hit a wall and you get tired and you peter out, like it is what it is. But don't talk yourself out of it until that happens. So got out, got a decent jump, got a good start, was like 17th-ish, and just rode it really, really good right behind Norn and Chiz. Like I was right behind them within a second or two for over half the race. Like 3/4 of the way through, Chiz starting to pull me. They both started pulling me a little bit, so I started petering out. But I rode a really strong main event the whole time. and ended up pulling away from everybody that was behind me. So I had a solid 17th, which was I was very proud of considering how I was feeling coming into it, and being a little bit under the weather still and being at elevation. So I was pretty stoked on it.
I saw on Instagram the other day, and obviously it's a different situation, but Kyle Chisholm was talking about the breathing and elevation, and of course his vocal cords from the injury years ago. But he was saying it felt like running a race. I don't remember what distance he said, but he said it felt like running some kind of race and having to breathe through a straw. Is that something that you felt as well?
No, no, not at all. Like your body just fatigues out. I'm sure his situation is completely different, which that made me
Yeah.
not feel any better either. Because I was like, oh, dude, I was riding good. I was riding there right there with Chiz and Norn, and then he says something like that. I'm like, gosh dang it, dude. So yeah, no, I mean, Chiz is gonna Chiz. Like he's literally
Yep.
got a saying about him because he's so solid. So I was just stoked to be up in that position and be, ahead of most of all the other privateer type situations. And yeah, just up there battling with some of the good dudes in our sport, which is huge for me.
Yeah, my last question for you today. It's been a huge turnaround for you this year in Supercross. And I know usually you run a few motocross rounds every summer. Is that something you're planning on doing again this year, or are you just focused on Supercross only and then waiting to see is Super Motocross playoffs out of the question, or what is your outlook on all of those?
Yeah, I think for sure, at least as of right now, I'm probably going to do Redbud, Millville, and Ironman because those are drivable from my house in Topeka, Kansas. Potentially Denver because that one's drivable from Kansas as well. However, that one's pretty relatively quick. I don't think I'm going to be ready by then to trying to swap everything over and, you know, that situation. So I do want to keep myself into SMX. Realistically, a direct transfer for me is kind of out of the picture because I'm not going to be doing all of the outdoors. And I know some of the solid dudes are going to be doing all of outdoors. So for me, my real goal is to keep myself in the LCQ fight. So I want to be top 30 in points. So hopefully do a few outdoors here and there, try to score some points at those outdoors, and keep myself in the fight for SMX.
Sounds good, man. Once again, congratulations on your PulpMX LCQ Challenge victory and the season overall. 12 main events compared to 2 last year. That's a huge leap for not only you, but the program you started to build for yourselves. And you guys are really starting to get some momentum behind you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. If you don't mind me asking, how did you figure out that I've been in 54 main events? You just go back through all the records, or is that stat somewhere?
I honestly just scroll through the Racer X results a lot of times when I'm looking for stats. What I was
Oh, there
originally
you
going to
go.
look for is I was going to be like, I wonder what his best season is, like start wise, because I know obviously last year was rough, and then I saw like 23. I think you made 15 out of 17. And I'm like, well, he hasn't
Yeah.
quite hit that level, but still a huge leap.
No.
I think you
Yeah.
had 11 or 12 in 22, so this is right up there with that, and you can get 13 this weekend in Salt Lake. But yeah, I just
Yep.
went through and I'm like, well, he only has a couple more seasons of 250s before this, so I just went through and yeah, 54 main events, like you said, halfway to 100, which is pretty special.
Yeah. Is that 54 main events, 250 and 450, or just 450?
54 total, I think. Hold on, let me check my notes real quick. 41 in the premier class is what I have right
Okay.
now. I could have missed one or
Dang.
two maybe, but yeah,
That's pretty sick,
41.
though.
Yeah. Once
Sweet, man.
again, thanks for the time. Best of luck the rest of the season. For people who want to get involved with your program, I know all the Moranz Mafia stuff is really popular, and you end up doing like jersey giveaways and plastic giveaways to help kind of give back to the people who support you. How can people get
Yep.
involved with the Moranz Mafia if they're not already?
So the biggest way to find any information, whether you want to do the Moran's Mafia, support as a sponsor, partnerships, logo placements, anything like that, most all the information is at kevinmoranz.com. You can hit the Moran's Mafia tab. It shows you the direct link to that. It shows you, if you want to become a sponsor, you have some information there. You have single round packages. Like you have all the information is kevinmoranz.com. So that's the easiest way to tell them. And then, obviously be sure to follow us on the YouTube side of things, or social media stuff because we try to do videos from every round and give our sponsors a little bit more of a plug on that situation as well. So, yeah, biggest thing, kevinmoranz.com. Check it out. There's definitely ways to get a hold of us.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Look out for him on track this weekend in Salt Lake City. Once again, this has been the number 146, Kevin Moranz, your 2025 PulpMX LCQ Challenge winner. Thank you for the time once again, and best of luck the rest of 2025.
Yeah, I appreciate it, my man.